Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Agentic AI in Action, Unlocking Business Value Beyond Copilot. We're thrilled to have you here today, and we'll start kicking off with some housekeeping items. First, this session is going to be recorded. Jimmy, if you want to switch to the next slide.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. Our session is going to be recorded, so if you missed something, don't worry. You can go back and watch it again. We'll share that with you by next week. Second, we encourage you to get active in our chat panel and submit some questions. This is an important topic, and we'd love to hear from you and for you to get involved. And lastly, please be sure to stick around to the end where we'll draw for some winners. We have two $100 Amazon gift cards, so we'll be announcing two winners. At this point, I would love to turn it over to our expert, Jimmy Ledbetter, Vice President of AI Strategy and Services here at Quisitive. Jimmy, take it away.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with me. So today we're going to be talking about a pretty hot topic, which is Agentic. So really, first off, I just want to share just a little bit of gratitude. I actually see a bunch of names that I recognize on here. So thank you all for spending some time with us, for sharing, just some insight on where this thing called Agentic is, how it's going, etc. So thanks to everybody coming back. For the new folks, my name is Jimmy Ledbetter. I am the VP of AI Strategy and Solutions. I'm also called AI Jimmy. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I do things called AI Thoughts for My Run. Talk about really what it is this whole AI is. How do we do it? How do we do it at scale? Quick background, just for those of y'all who don't know me. So I've been in the field of advanced analytics for over 20 years, stood up data warehouses, data science divisions nationwide. So I really got a leg up. Started with the GPT-3.5 models, thought, holy smokes, this is going to change everything. And haven't talked about anything since. One of the first things we did with AI, the very first things we did with AI, was we started talking about hey, I want to make this AI bot talk to something else. I did a CEO, a CFO, real estate agent, and I said, I want to buy a building in a really distressed market. CEO said, bad idea. CFO said, equally bad idea. Real estate agent said, fantastic idea, because I make money. So that was our first foray into agents. This is how do we actually get these things to start talking to each other? So we've been talking about this for years. We just are now getting to where we can start productionalizing these things. So let's go ahead and hit our agenda for today. So we're going to talk about why does this shift matter? We're going to talk about what are some things, where are they in your normal ecosystem? So for those of you who might be using other AI tools, where are these agents starting to show up? And then we're going to start talking about some agentic patterns that we see. So I could get on here and I can slide deck about architectures all day long, but really y'all care about the use cases. What are we going to be talking about? How are we going to be scaling these responsibly? And what's our next step? And really, how can you partner with Quisitive and we can help you take that next step? So let's go to the next slide. The era of Agentic AI. So first off, for anybody who does know me, I'm a college professor, so I over-explain absolutely everything. So the first thing we start talking about is an agent. An agent, really at its heart, is a function of AI. So it's either a prompt, meaning that we can talk to it, or it does something. So it ties into your it ties into your ecosystem. It can send emails. It can go ahead and question the database. That's really what an agent is. Actually, literally before this conversation, I was on the phone with Gartner, and we were all talking about 33% of enterprise software will embed in Agentic AI by 2028. If anybody here is following Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, they're actually saying that Agentic AI is really the new SaaS. And I absolutely agree with that. What we're doing with these Agentics is we're shifting from automation to creating digital employees. And I want y'all to think about that for a second. Is a digital employee, how can we go to an employee and say, here is somebody who needs to create an RFP. They've got a process in their mind. As long as they've got that drafted out, we can set digital employees to do that work for them and do that in a way to where they're really going to start seeing ROIs. And some of the Gartner ROIs that they're seeing right now is people who are doing this correctly are seeing probably anywhere between, like 132 to 457% of some of these ROIs. And that what they're doing with that is, like, how are we getting things to market faster? How are we reducing customer satisfaction inquiries issues? That's really where we're starting to see ROI. So what makes AI agentics different? So agentics can reason, plan, and act across a workflow. So when we start talking about reasoning, and we're going to start talking about some examples there, is when we were starting to do AI back with like the GPT 3.5 days in like 2022, 2023, really it was question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. But now you might notice these buttons that are showing up saying research or deep research. Well, now it's actually using the AI to actually form a reasoning, a train of thought. It's then setting a plan out, and then it's acting on that plan. And what's nice about that is it works across systems. Now, I know nobody here deals with that problem, but we have some customers who might have disparate systems. It might happen. So these agents can be set to say, you know what, I want to go to Salesforce and I want to get information out of here. I need to tack into this website and pull information from here and bring that into that corpus of memory. So it's memory bank. So that way we can work that way. And then how do we start executing the task? How do we form a plan out to actually execute? So we go to the next slide. I want to start talking about how your employees are probably using agents right now. So what I've got here is I've got a screen that shows the new GPT-5 that was launched. And one of the big things that happened in the web version of GPT-5 was the ability to click this little button that said agents. And what it did was based on the information that GPT-5 had was, how do I create a spreadsheet? How do I create a presentation? It did this at the macro level. So it goes out and it kind of figures out based on its knowledge how it does things. The things that we're seeing, some really interesting challenges right now that we're seeing is like on the research space. If anybody here is using Microsoft Research or anything like that, it's like, hey, here's 837 different research points. Well, I might want to control that a little bit more. I might want to just deeply own what that looks like. So that's where other agentics are going to start kicking in, and what we're going to talk about here in a second. But when you're working with your internal customers, this is probably the first step that they have. Either this or something that we call an assistant, which really what an assistant is how do I actually how do I schedule like a task? Think about it as what am I telling an intern to do and having them do it? So what I want to do is I want to talk about this for a second. So here at Quisitive, we are, we run everything Microsoft. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking about the different tools that people are using. We've talked the keynote behind this is how do we get past M365 Copilot, but then how do we go into the next couple of steps and really how do we get into that no code, low code, pro code. Now, y'all, before I do this, I'm getting ready to throw a very text heavy slide at you. Please do not attempt to read that thing. I'll give you the high levels behind it. I promise that we will send it out afterwards. But just for everybody who is a reader, grab a screenshot if you need it right now, but we'll go through this in greater detail. But really, inside of Microsoft, as far as agentics and AI is concerned, there's really 4 entry patterns into AI. The first one is what everybody here saw as the tagline is the M365 Copilot. There's also Copilot Studio, AI Foundry, and Microsoft Fabric. Those are the big 4. So so thanks, Natalie. She's already got our back. So for those of you who need to grab it right now. One of the things that we start talking about is the way I like to do it, and I typically tend to go back to the realm of academia, is I think of the first 3 pillars this way: bachelor's, master's, doctorate. So in the no-code space, my M365 Copilot is my bachelor's student. I can tell it to do a task as long as I'm very specific. Oh, can anybody else not hear my audio? Courtney, can I have you? No, it's good. Okay.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, thank you. So, so as far as the bachelor student is concerned, as long as I give it very specific instructions, like for example, in M365 Copilot, it does a great job of writing my Python in Excel for me. I'm that nerd, so it does a good job for that for me. I live and die by Teams recording. So my Copilot recordings are important to me. So it does a really, really good job of there. But it's a single focused agent. It's really just does one task. Enter Copilot Studio. Now, Copilot Studio is your low code. So for those of you who might have been part of the like the studio with Azure for a while. It was Power Virtual Agent. They then moved that to Copilot Studio. But really, how do I start putting a team together to really start working through a problem? So how do I use those basically Power Automate flows and connect into different data sources, have a UI that builds the application for me, and seamlessly start to integrate into things like Teams? They're fantastic. I actually, whenever I'm building out any type of agentic workflow, I truly start with Copilot Studio because it lets me kind of put my thoughts down on the paper. Now, eventually you need to go into the pro code side, and that's where AI Foundry kicks in. So AI Foundry kicks in, and I'm going to show you how it actually does agents here on the next couple of slides. But with AI Foundry, what it does is it lets me go ahead and start really fine-tuning those agents, like being able to add in different components, being that more full code solution. So that's my doctorate student. It understands that very, very well. So I believe personally, when you're getting into an agentic workflow, you typically like to do a combination of the three, the no code, low code, and pro code. Fabric's very interesting. Fabric is also needs to be something you need to think about. So that's more for my business facing folks and my engineering. I don't have a clever bachelor student doctorate for it. We'll just call it the fellow. So I guess I did have something for it. Yay for me. So one of the things that it does a great job is it sits on top of a data store. So now what I can do inside of Fabric is I can actually have it build my data pipelines for me. It uses a lot of the same engineering that Power BI does, which is fantastic. But it also lets me start asking natural questions to my data set. What are my top 10 customers? How do, what's the typical spend pattern for that? So it's specifically built on your data, where the other three are really built for how do we go across the ecosystem. So I'm going to take a breather because I talk fast, but one of the things that we do is I want to show you all, really when we start talking about agents in Foundry, what does that truly mean? What is it that we're doing inside of AI Foundry to build the agents out? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a quick preview. Now, this is all preview functionality that's open. It's in public preview. The good thing is Quisitive actually has access to some of the behind the scenes stuff. I actually sit on the partner advisory committee, so we've got access to see how are we going to implement this here in a little bit. So the first thing you see on the screen here is whenever you're going into AI Foundry and you're saying, hey, I want to create an agent, it's going to give you a screen. And the first thing that AI Foundry does a really good job of is letting you choose your model. So you might choose a ChatGPT 5 model. You might, if you noticed the news recently, they brought back the 4 O's. You might bring a 4 model. You could bring in a meta model. You could bring in a DeepSeek model. I'm finding that people are becoming very protective of their models. The good thing is Foundry lets you meet you where you're at. As long as you've got an instance hosted inside of Foundry, you can tie into it. Now, a lot of people stop here, and that you're not making an agent if you're just stopping at model selection. All you're doing is you're recreating one of the LLMs. You really need the next couple of pieces, and this next part is huge because we need to evolve from what we call prompt engineering to context engineering. How do we engineer an entire scenario that this agent can then work in? Well, the thing that you need most of is you need data, and we call that knowledge. So what is it that this thing knows? So what your people are doing right now is they're going to the large language model, and anybody who's heard me talk before says I'll say they're typing 1 sentence questions and expecting PhD level answers. It doesn't work. So instead of it knowing how to climb Mount Kilimanjaro and how to make cookies, I need to say this is the information you understand better than everything. And the cool thing is there's a lot of pre-built connectors in there for us to go grab information. We can go grab a file, and just say, hey, for this instance, You only need to know this document. We're working with the state legislator right now where they actually are working with how do they build bills out. Well, they've got a large file. It's 420 something pages long. For this agent, that makes sense. A single file makes sense. But then you've got all the rest of the magic behind Azure with you. Azure AI Search. I know people here might have a document or two stored in a document store someplace. Let's not lie, we probably have hundreds of thousands of them. So now working with AI Search, how do you correctly index those documents, give the people access to that information is key. How do you tie back into your SharePoint site? How do you go back to Fabric, which I was just talking about? How do how do you start grounding in an internet search? That's important. Sometimes, I'm working with a financial client right now, if they're talking about mortgage rates from when the model cut, i.e. 4 to 6 months ago, well, mortgage rates are getting ready to change. Sometimes I need to go out and grab more information. As you're planning your agent out, planning the document store that you need is important. It's very important. And the good thing is we can actually tie into that. Now, again, if you stop there, we haven't quite done it right. Now we can start tying into what we call connected agents. So we can actually assign logic apps and functions to actually start doing work. Do I need to write to a PDF file? We can connect an agent to that knowledge base and say, here's how they connect up. We can have a decision-making agent that says, you know what, in my agent registry, here is who I need to pull and why. How do I start grabbing information? Think about each one of these as an automaton that does a really good job of understanding its use case. And then how do I start tagging them in together to do something? And Quisitive can definitely help you with this. And we even, one of the things we're even talking about is security. Agentic security is a big discussion point right now. How do we make sure that those little automatons are doing exactly what I want them to do? So that's something that we talk about with all of our customers. But that's at its heart is where some of the pro code stuff starts to fit in. But this is still only part of the equation. The other part of the equation is my new 3 favorite letters in the world, MCP, Model Context Protocol. Now, think about this. A lot of these are trained on the text equivalent of the internet. Imagine that you say, I want you to go create a database and get stuff. Well, I will tell you right now, hilarity will ensue, and probably in the form of bad decision making. So what MCP does is it is the ability to seamlessly integrate tools between the AI model and create your ecosystem. So MCP can do things like connect into your database. And what it is think about it like you would API management. It's a lot of the same concepts there. So how do we connect into a database? How do we go into our M365 account and actually send an email out, like using our templates? How does that work? How do we tie into something and update a spreadsheet? If anybody's listened to us at FabCon, we understand data states usually start and end with Excel. Let's just be honest, they do. How do I update that Excel spreadsheet? But how do I give access to that information? How do I put purview over the top of this thing to govern that thing? That's important. But how do we keep that single security layer in there that makes sure that we're not just going out and doing rogue operations? Because I will tell you right now, they are happening. But from your application development specialist, this has been what a huge benefit is. They can go in and they can create these MCP servers to where they can start actually like making it do things like, connecting into databases, doing things, etc. Again, it gives us that unified data access and insights. I actually heard, if they think about it, MCP is to AI as what USB was to devices. If anybody's old like me, remember we used to plug in 90 different cables into our computer. Then USB came in, and now we just have one. Although we have USB-A and USB-C, don't get me started on that. So it's really that way of streamlining this down and getting it all into one spot. So what we've talked about so far, we've talked about the ability to go in and what your people are using inside of the large language models. We've talked about where Copilot Studio, M365 Copilot, Fabric, and Foundry all kick in. We showed you like how we at Quisitive are helping people with Azure, like how are we doing the agents. We've talked about some security. We talked about MCP. Okay, nerd stuff is now out of the way. let's go ahead and I really want to start talk. I want to take the next about 20 plus minutes to really go through and talk about some agentic AI patterns. What's some of the Azure stack behind it? What's the use cases that you can use to really get you down that value chain to why we need to do agentics? And I am going to try to save some time for questions at the end. All right. So thank you for all my AI that actually helped me build this stuff. So I did a lot of my research here. So the first one we see is omni-channel customer service orchestrator. That's just $1 million words, folks, for how do we have agents that really help our customer service agents be more efficient? So how can they handle customer inquiries across voice, chat, email, and social, accessing customer data, and executing resolutions in real time? Think about it this way. So we have the ability to use some of the frameworks that we have over there to where you could have AI agents who could actually be the customer service agent, that you could actually speak to it. And the AI, the AI audio model would then take it and could have an interaction with a client. We actually have an automotive client right now who is doing this right now. But then behind the scenes, having access to that 360-degree customer portfolio. So how do I take all of those disparate sources and say, okay, let's pretend for a second that we're in a call center. What does my banking account look like? What does my loans look like inside of here? Having access to that entire portfolio. So you could have the chat if you wanted to, or it could just be a set of agents that your customer service expert is sitting down saying, I've got this customer coming in. How do I talk to them directly? How do I talk about the history that we've had with this customer? I'm in Florida, so if I'm next to my UCF here, I say go Knights. How do I bring that level of personality into it? But then also, how do I not have to jump into 2, 3, 4 disparate sources? So industry benchmarks we're seeing is the resolution rate when people are using this are absolutely huge. 65 to 83%. But to me, the most important stat on this field is a 50% faster issue resolution compared to human agents, just by that person not having to go different places. Imagine how excited your customers are going to be to where they could say, I got a single call resolution. Because I hate to tell you, and I'm just going to speak from experience here, y'all, I do not like to have to call back. I had an issue with my wireless the other day. Man, I had to call them like 5 times. I was not a happy camper. Now, consolidating this, having that agentic workflow out there is really going to help. We're seeing reductions in operational costs, and we're seeing improvements in net promoter scores. And again, y'all, we'll be sitting this deck out here at the end so that we all can see it. So that's one that I'm really psyched about. Now, intelligent document processing engine. Now, document intelligence is something that we've been talking about for years. I mean, like literally, when we first were doing AI, the chat was cute. It was great. It did some cool stuff. I always tell the story. The first time I was doing everything, I worked with a large consulting firm, and they said, we hate it. It doesn't speak our language. We don't understand how to communicate with it. I loaded a document with all of their TLAs or 3-letter acronyms in there, and now they speak the same lingo. Adoption went through the roof. Giving it access to your data gives them faster speed to value. But folks, I'm going to be real honest with you. People are having a hard time cracking that nut. So, and the reason being is because people are either feeding too much or too little data, or they don't understand the types of data that they're sending in. And that's where agents can be really helpful. So, rhetorical question, all PDFs are made the same, true or false? Absolutely false. Some PDFs have metadata behind them. Some are just images. That's 2 different strategies as to how you read that PDF file. You want a really good example? Look at a contract that has red lines through it, where somebody's actually scanned in a contract of a PDF and is looking for the strike-throughs on that. Ingesting that document has those are 2 different ways to do it. Do we do the OCR bit behind it, or do we read the metadata behind it? 2 different stories. Imagine that autonomous agent that's sitting on there and is actually taking a first pass at that document and saying, nope, timeout, that's an OCR. This one we can read the metadata on. And then it's routing things through and it's intelligently processing the document. And then using AI search, one of the things that you can do is have it go through and like, am I loading the right amount of data? So y'all, true story. I was doing some research for a client the other day and I said, hey, do research on it. 835 different documents came through. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of information there. Having those agents that say, for this use case, here's access to the following 10, 15, 20 documents, using AI search is really going to give you a lot more bang for your buck. Because again, I always, for everybody who's been on my things knows that all my jokes are the same. They're all bad. With AI, it's kind of like when my wife tells me to do something. If she asks me to do 10 things, she's lucky if I do 5. She's lucky if 2 are done right. AI is a lot of the same thing. If we're not telling it where to go get the data, or using tools like AI search to go through and say, here's how we index the documents and here's how we go ahead and grab it. So, but this also helps us with our structured versus unstructured. Those have different ingestion ideas, etc. This has been helped with document processing time. Honestly, all that's something that takes the longest period of time. Processing overhead, but then also accuracy. Large language models don't have an accuracy score yet. We're still working on that. But now if we send in the right amount of information and we test and retest it, that's where we're starting to get some bang for our buck. All right, autonomous sales acceleration platform. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we had something that helped our salespeople qualify leads? Everybody here works with a sales team. I guarantee it. So how do you do something that qualifies leads, personalizes your outreach, manages your pipeline, and optimizes your deal progression? Think about those in different stages. Like the one thing I'm seeing right now, and it's infuriating me, is I'm seeing lots and lots of different AI companies who are saying, we are giving you qualified leads. I actually dove deep into 4 of them myself for a friend of mine, and actually found out all they're doing is they're just scraping Google Maps. That's all they're doing. So now what's problem is a lot of your sales teams might be grabbing these qualified leads and they don't really know what to do with these things. So now we're going to put agents on top of these that say, you know what, let's bring this lead in here compared to the rest of our portfolio. If we're doing a retail, a manufacturing, an HLS customer, how do they stack up against the rest of our portfolio? How do we build custom marketing schemes for each one of them? How do we say, this is based on this customer profile. Here's how I would go and I would attack this lead personally. And then, Mr. and Mrs. AE, how do I then go ahead and draft out what your marketing plan looks like to how you're going to talk to that person on different social media platforms, in their email, making it very customized to them. Now, y'all, keep the human in the loop. That's a very important piece of that. You want to make sure that we can give you all these documents, but let's make you the editor, not the author. And here's how you tweak it. You still want that human touch, but having one AE have a fleet of 10 AI agents behind them to do their work, that's where you're going to see them being able to go in and start really crushing those leads for you. So, because again, bad leads are coming. We're seeing huge amounts in conversion rates, time to market for new product, and just productivity, and especially for your AEs, this isn't just, I got another trip to go to Starbucks now because I got some extra time. This is now I could be chasing more leads. That helps my commission structure. Y'all, if you do this one, your AEs are going to high five you. I absolutely promise it. All right, here's an interesting one. Financial intelligence and reporting systems. Now, y'all, there are times where large language models are absolutely fantastic. I live by them. They're in my title. But how do we prepare reports, conduct risk assessments, and ensure regulatory compliance in some of the financial decisions? If you all know, sometimes, where I'm a little wary when I want to provide analytics. Well, that's okay. Agents aren't just locked into large language models. They can provide us access into like Python, for example. Where it's if I'm doing a forecasting model, one of the things I can have an agent do is I can have an agent clean the data, and the way it does it, it sends it to Python. Python understands how to do that. And then I could feed that into the model, which is in Python, knows how to do that. And then I can write that finding back into a database, so that way another agent can go grab that. So that's where we start seeing agents getting important, because a lot of people think an agent is just strictly the large language model. It's still your data science models that you all have built out. It knows how to call them. It knows how to insert the data. You can actually build these that help prep the data so that way you can build those reports. If you have triggers, agents can have real-time triggers on there. So if you're wanting to do something, say, hey, I need somebody to double check that, you can actually have a real-time trigger to go out and call that agentic workflow. Again, what we're seeing right now is we're seeing, the reduction in document prep time. That's a lot. I mean, if you really think about how a lot of our analytics work, is a lot of it is prep time. Having those agentic preparations, I think, are key. And then really, how do we go ahead and, how do we get that onto the next step? Is like, how do we reduce our compliance? How do we have something that reads compliance? Now, y'all, we don't want this to make the decision for us. We just want to say, here's the decision I've seen, here's what supports the decision, and then let the human in the loop make the decision. All right, I'm still on time. I've got 10 minutes to go through 6 more, so I think I can do it. Employee Experience Automation Hub. So basically think about this. One of the biggest problems we see with companies right now is on and offboarding people. Like, how do we, or what's that support look like? How do we really tie into those HR specific workflows that improve the life cycle? What you can do is you can have your onboarding experience tied into agents. Remember, this is all built in Azure. It understands. I know I should call it Entra, but I will still call it Active Directory. But how do we have it do some of that? Do some of that work for you? How do we have it send the documents out? How do we have it check? Did they sign those W-2s that they needed to sign? All of that manual piece that we're constantly trekking after somebody, that can be automated. But then also think about it from the employee perspective. You're the new kid in town and you're just sitting down eating lunch by yourself and you don't know, where do I go to get help with X, Y, and Z? You could absolutely have access to some of those, like those experts that said, hey, if I need to go get help with my marketing, here's where the person I go to in marketing to get help with. Those agentic flows are absolutely there to help you do that. So not just like the administrative paperwork side, but also that employee onboarding process to really, how do I have that person that I can go ask a question about no matter what? And think about that one last one. We've actually done this for a large retail company. We're getting ready to get into benefit season, y'all. And I'm still the guy who couldn't tell you the difference between an FSA and an HSA if my life depended on it. That is a great use of Agentics, is like, hey, here's all of our new changes inside of our document. You're getting ready to go in through your onboarding. Hey, you know what? These deductibles might have changed. That's a really great agentic workflow. And you could, again, tie it into the right amounts of documents. I only want to compare this year versus last year's document, and that's my agentic workflow. Store that out, index it, away you go. So again, this one is a fan favorite. Supply Chain Intelligence Coordinator. So how do you have agents that optimize inventory, predict disruptions, manage supplier relationships, and coordinate end-to-end supply chains? So one of the things that this does a very, very good job of is looking for patterns, but we have to be able to document said pattern. So, like if you're feeding in data and you're saying, this is actually a true story from a customer that I had recently. They say if they have a part sit on the shelf, it goes bad after a while. So really optimizing the ability to backfill that part is imperative. You've got to be able to figure that out. Well, think about this from an agentic workflow. I've got access to my data. I have access to their order history. I can say, I typically go through X number of these parts. Team, give me the recommendation that you think that I need for it. And most importantly, give me the justification behind the scenes as to why did I need to make that decision. Get that to the human in the loop. The human in the loop looks at it and goes, that makes sense. Here's how I see the decision make. And now I'm not having to carry as much inventory as I did before. I'm not having to spend as much time fighting through Excel to figure it out and make that decision. I'm able to just automate that. So supply chain, very, very big one. And we have, I did pull a use case that somebody saw an actual 3.5 million in annual savings on logistic operations. So that was enormous. All right. Compliance, governance, and automation. Everybody here is subject to compliance and governance in some form or fashion. You just are. If you are, if it's CCPA, GDPR, HIPAA, what have you, everybody here is locked into some type of compliance and governance. And usually what that is if you're wondering, like, am I in compliance with this? You're having to call another person, ask them to interpret the law, and then give you your information. Agents can do this. So the great thing about compliance and governance is they're all process driven. Here's how you follow X. There is some interpretation on that. So again, my human in the loop is very important there. But how do I take that document and break it down into the process I need to follow? And then set up each agent along the way. So I've got my advisory agent who is answering the questions for me. I have my automation agent who is actually doing the work for me. I have my prep work agent. Back in my old banking days, it took more time for people to prep for an audit than to do the actual audit. So how do I follow those? How do I identify the right documents, etc.? Like, all of that is pieces and parts that you can stitch together to say, here is a seamless governance framework, a compliance and governance framework that I can use over and over again. And the best part about it, it's easy to automate, or it's easy to audit that. So now you can audit each step and say, I need to change that halfway through. We're not getting the results we want. Because again, this is conversational analytics. I can start asking questions in the middle of the flow. All right, inventory. So we're seeing a lot in the research space, especially with the newer models that are coming up that have that more like deep research component to it. How do we automate research, synthesis, design, A/B testing, IP analysis, etc.? Like, all of this innovation acceleration is huge. I'm going to tell you a true story. I actually just trademarked AI Jimmy. I literally did all of that research through agents. I had it research, was that title available for it? I found that the trademark hadn't been submitted. What did my paperwork need to look like? How did I need to fill it out? What did I need to do the trademark itself? I had an agentic flow that did it. I have it to where it was checking daily. There's a time when I was trying to get the trademark, people could object to it and I could lose it. I actually had an agent checking daily. It was web scraping. It was just going out and checking that web page every day. Did somebody put an objection in? Didn't. I made it through. Like, all of that team that took that process that I was able to document out, it was able to follow it to the letter. And y'all, how I built the process, I literally took their own documents against them. I took the documents, fed it through the LLM, and said, what does this process look like? It cranked it out for me. It was fantastic. So think about this. If we can streamline the processes to, like, how do we research? How do we go to market? How do we help it write white? I'm going to trip over my words here. Write the white paper. I got it. Really, that's where we're starting to see, like, recommending the test. Now, we don't want it to do the testing for us, but we can have it recommend what the test look like, put together the findings, etc. All right, I've got 2 more in 3 minutes, so I'm almost home. Executive Intelligence Command Center. So this is your C-suite center. If you think about where your C-suite goes, a lot of them will go to Power BI. They might go to Excel. They might go to Salesforce. They might go to Dynamics. They might go to 90 different spots. One of the things that we can really do is we can streamline the places that our executives go to get information. I always tell the story about the first time I ever did a dashboard. I was 28 years old, and I wrote this beautiful dashboard, y'all. Had KPIs all over the place. I aggregated data from 900 different spots. It was awesome. I took it to the CEO, and he goes, I was crushed. I was like, what do you mean, And he's like, Jimmy, I want the following. If it's a bad day, it's a picture of a desk. If it's a good day, it's a picture of golf clubs. That's all I want. So being a hot-headed 28-year-old, I'm like, fine, I'll do that. So I went out, I talked to his executive administrative assistant. I found the 10 things he looked at every single day, and I basically created a checklist. If all of them were in the green, he got his picture of golf clubs. One of them was red, he had a picture of a desk. He still uses that dashboard to this day. We're still friends. But think about that, just like, how do we have that one-stop shop that your executive can say, these are the following reports that I look at every day, and be able to have a conversation with it. Drill down into why. Hey, we saw a spike in the pipeline. What happened to it? How do I get access to that data source? Hey, you know what? I need to make sure that we're getting ready to launch a new policy. What does that look like? How do I go through and see? I've been sent several different emails. How do I see the piece of information that I need to address first? Like, prepping that is important. And then like, even how do we prep, like, and how do we take that information and prep for exec meetings? So, I have some for my execs whenever I'm getting ready to prep for meetings. What is it that my C-suite needs to see, and how do they speak? How do I speak in their language? Because we have different language patterns, etc. And last but not least, this one seems to be one of the most popular ones, but creative content orchestration right now. Folks thinking past, like just LLMs, like if you're not watching, like avatars are becoming a big thing. There's been, we're seeing the onset of social media influencers, actually digital social media influencers. Being able to create that content in different ways is important. I've actually got a neural network that I've trained on my voice. Sounds a little too like me, which is a little creepy. But I can actually, if I wanted to, I could streamline and I could record content. I use it more for the research, but think about it from a branding perspective. How do I get information ready for LinkedIn and Insta and Facebook, and like Pinterest is actually big, Reddit, etc. How do I get that ready? How do I have it write the scripts for me and get it out there? You could have it record it for you. I would still don't just auto send stuff, but make sure that you're keeping the human in the loop. But really, like, how do you start using these other pieces together to help like craft your entire social media platform? Whew. All right. So I think I'm at the end of where I can start opening up for. Yep, I'm up to where I can probably open up for questions, and then we'll close it out. So.
Thank you, Jimmy. Great presentation. We do have a couple questions in the chat, so we can get started.
Diving on it right now. Okie dokie. Got the audio fixed. What safeguards and controls do Agentic AI or Foundry offer to ensure responsible usage on proprietary data? Jordan, that is such a great question. If we ever meet, you can sit by me at lunch. That is so. The big thing with Microsoft, and this is something that you can all talk to your Microsoft reps on. Microsoft is not like anything inside of Azure. It will not train on your data. Period. Full stop. If the models are housed in there, and it's all part of their licensing agreements to make sure that they don't store your data out. What they will store is if a prompt flicks a content filter, they'll store the prompt out, but that's only stored for about 30 days, and then they get rid of it. So, but they don't have access to your data. And what's most important, y'all, is Microsoft houses a great amount of information around the large. They store a lot of large language models. Their agreement with each one of them is no matter what, your data cannot be trained. The same cannot be said for if your folks are using the LLMs directly. So if somebody's going to chat.openai.com and they're using their personal account and they have not flipped the switch that says help improve the model for everybody to off, your data is fair game. No matter what, if your model is housed in Azure, it cannot be trained on. That's one of the main safeguards against that. Unintended actions prevented or caught. That's another great section of that question. They have these filters behind the scenes that say, like we need to filter for self-harm, or we need to sex or violence or anything like that. And you have the ability to actually really fine tune which one of those are flipped and which ones are not. A perfect example, when I was working with a construction company, they did a lot of conversations around blasting. Well, blasting's violent. I mean, it's an explosion. So they were like, oh, we need to turn that one down a bit. And so that one didn't flip as many pieces of information. Didn't flip as many of the filters. That's something that you could then change. So, okay. Jordan, did I answer your question? Take the hands up as a high five. So, all right. Now,
Jimmy, we do have a couple more slides if you want to go through them while we wait for some more questions to come in.
Absolutely. All right. So the way that we actually start building out our implementation pathways is we go through and when we're working with our customers, we like to start with foundation building. So establish your Azure Agent Factory. One of the things we love to start to do, we've got a leader here, is we love to start talking about security early. Security and strategy are usually the first things we like to talk about. So how do we build that security framework so that way when you build these agents, you're going to do it safe and secure. You've got identity at the front of everything that you do. But then also from an AI perspective, are we solving the right problem? My team, I have a team of strategists, actually several of you have worked with them. They do a great job of identifying what is the right use case, what should we be spending time on, what should we be spending effort on, etc. So we do that in our foundation. We then scale a lot of we then start scaling things out. We start working with teams because AI, whenever you're building it, it's a team of security specialists, app dev specialists, infra, data, all working together. A lot of people just loop data and AI together. That's not something that we really do. So we actually put together like the teams so we understand how that is. And then really, how does OCM fit into this? AI is heavily an OCM process. Like you've got this new AI thing. Do you have a leader in your organization that says that this is how we are going to organizationally use AI? So that's our pathway. And then what we do is our success factors that we see for this one is whenever we set this out with any of our security, our agentic flows, we make sure that the human, like the C-suite is involved. This has got to have a decision maker with teeth. We make sure that our data, you all are thinking about data in the right way. You have that change management. You're integrating Azure in where necessary, wherever possible, because it does have a lot of great stuff in it to do that. And then compliance, governance, and ethics. Everything we need to do has an ethical framework behind it. All right. In the PowerPoint, we've seen enterprise AI transforming industries like finance. Given the sensitivity and complexity of healthcare workflows, this is a good one. How beneficial and secure is it to adopt enterprise-grade AI for clinical operations, patient engagements, and data-driven decision-making in healthcare? Such a great question. Again, so I want to tackle that one in two different ways. The first one is, again, when anybody is using AI inside of Azure, your data cannot, I've seen the architectures, cannot be used to train the model. So as long as it's hosted inside of Azure, there's no way that your data can leak out. Now, I'm an AI guy, so they're like, sure, you can go ahead and talk to your Microsoft reps about it. They can absolutely show you where this is at. If there is just change resistance inside of your organization, remember, they also have what they call SLMs, or small language models. Those don't tie back to a large model. Those can actually be run in a container. And we're seeing a lot, especially in HLS, we're seeing a lot of people who are saying, I want to feed my information into this small language model, because again, it's self-contained. But that is one of the ways that you can also think about this is using, instead of an LLM, you can use an agent to call an SLM. And if you're really just looking at trying to get information from a document, I'm actually going to be doing a lot with SLMs in the next year. So those are two different ways. So again, you've got the safety and security of the Microsoft stack behind you. You also have the ability to go into the SLM stack. So, did that answer that question? Right.
I think you got it.
I think I got it. So I think we're coming up at time here. So, I'm going to stop real quick because somebody does always manage to sneak in at the very end to get a question. So here we go. I got one. If I wanted to build an initial core team within an organization to be able to build and manage this type of AI innovation and adoption, what would that team look like? Role and title. Great question. Starting at the top, if you don't have this, you will fail. Executive sponsor. That is the person who has teeth, who can then dub people, who give them agency, authority, and the autonomy to do this. That person has got to sit at the head of the table. Your center of excellence is, it's really good to be centered around, I tend to bring people in. I have a representative from IT, so I want my enterprise architect there, because y'all, AI silos are being built quicker than anything. Gartner says that unregulated AI is going to cause more tech debt in the next 2 years than it has in the last 20 combined. So your enterprise architect has got to sit up the top there and not let people start spinning off ancillary databases or building one-off apps, etc. If anybody here remember the Access kerfuffle of the early 2000s, if I never see another Access database, it'll be too soon, because I saw disparate data sources all over the place. So enterprise architect has got to sit there. Your governance person has got to sit there as well. And then at that point, I would bring in change champions from the different businesses, marketing, customer experience. Each one of your different areas of your business should each have a representative. So we have your executive, your enterprise architect, your legal, and then your change champions. And the thing that's not a person that needs to be in there is you also need to have enterprise grade sandboxes and testing environments. Let people play with AI, because that's how they find innovation. And y'all, if you're not giving it to them, I will guarantee everybody's got one of these fancy little doodads that I can have. I can get every single LLM that I want on my phone and test it out that way. You have to have that enterprise grade sandbox that lets people play, store out the prompts, and then use it as its own advisor. Hey, inside of the sandbox, the following people played with the following thing. Is this something we need to adopt at scale? Let it be the AI advisor behind you as far as building up that sandbox and providing you that advisory level. Jason, if you could thumbs up me, did that answer your question? Or I want to give you, that is a good one. Tech, that is already a key focus. Yes, yes. Think I will need a Copilot engineer, Copilot developer. I would definitely have somebody who is familiar with it. Yes, because one of the things that on the slide that I showed earlier, where we talked about the 3 steps, having that champion who understands, when do I go to M365 Copilot? When do I go to Copilot Studio? When I go to Foundry? I think is really important, because people hear AI and they think that I can just do everything in one tool. Well, that's not true. I could build a house with just a hammer. It wouldn't be the best house. It wouldn't stand up for very long, but I could do it. Having that person who can guide them into the right spot is important. Cool, aligns with my thought. Good. Looking to, yes, yep. I think that's absolutely perfect, Jason. That's how I would run it. I was told I had till 50. Courtney, I stole a minute from you. I apologize, but I tend to do that. So I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, and she's going to close it out. But I want to end this real quick. Y'all, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. I love coming out and talking about this stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. So if you need anything, call the teams, because actually I think I do have a CTA that we've got. If I can just take this part real quick. Call us, go to Quisitive.ai, and what we can do is we can help. We can set up times for you to talk with some of our specialists. We can talk about what your AI strategy and framework looks like. What is that agentic security framework looks like? If you're not wanting to build an application, we actually have an entire application already built out that we can put inside of your organization that is governed. It's agentic. It's got everything you need behind the scenes to really start getting people up and get people up quickly. With that also comes access to our managed services. So you actually have an AI coach. Some of the people who I get to interact with directly, and they keep the pulse on what's going on with AI right now. So, GPT-5, lots of stuff changed. So my coach is actually our coaches are actually talking about that right now. So if you can go there and you can, come in, talk to us, we can absolutely set up a time. We have what we call a design lab, where we can work with you all and absolutely get you set up to where, identify what the right use case is, how do we partner together, etc. So Courtney, I forgot my last slide, so I'll hand it back to you, because I want everybody to go there and work with our teams.
Awesome. Thank you guys for joining. If you want, you can scan this QR code, and I will pop the link in the chat to take our survey to kind of see where you're at with AI so that we can help you out. But other than that, thank you all for joining us today. And we've got to pick our winners. So drum roll, please. Our winners today were randomly drawn from the attendees. And our first winner of a $100 Amazon gift card is going to be Ian Marcotte. And our second winner is going to be Steve Duke. So Ian and Steve, I will reach out to you to make sure we get you your gift cards. And like I said, thank you guys so much for joining us today. Please take a moment to fill out this survey that we have shared with you so we can see where you're at with AI and we can help you out. Again, Thank you and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, y'all.